All right, guys, you just had your lesson with Mrs. Preston on 1.6, lesson 1.6, which is how we can round numbers that have a decimal point. So we have to pay attention to place value. That's what this whole chapter's been about, is the homes that the digits live in. And in order to round numbers with a decimal point, we have to continue to pay attention to the homes that they live in. So hopefully you got your notes ready in your blue folder. Hopefully you have your math notebook already out, because I'm hoping that you already glued in a chart that was attached to the assignment that you could glue in on estimating and rounding numbers. And I'm hoping that while you watched the lesson with Mrs. Preston, you had your whiteboard out, your marker, and you are practicing with her. So now you're going to get your notes into your notebook so that you can go on your way to do your independent practice in your SAVVAS math tile. And then after you have practice there, you can get going on your homework. So you should have your math notebook, your blue math folder, pencil highlighter, glue stick, and of course, your scissors. This should be a pretty good habit you're in now. All right, let's go ahead and get our notes pages out for lesson 1.6, and this will be where we learn even more how to round numbers. So it should be your next one, 1.6, should say rounding at the top. All right, keeping all this organized. And let's go ahead and cut out our notes page first. Should be good at this by now. Okay, trim it real good so it fits. Okay, so you have this. Now, my hope is that you already printed the other chart that you can glue into your notebook next to these set of notes that I attached for you that looks similar to this, okay? So hopefully you have already printed this, or you may need to go into the assignment and copy it by hand, and you're gonna be putting it on the left side. So we're gonna make 1.6 on our right side, and this is gonna be on our left side. So we'll go over that, but that was attached to this assignment for you to print or copy into your notebook. So what is rounding? Okay, well, you're probably good at rounding whole numbers. I'm gonna make you dizzy for a second. There we go. You're probably good at rounding whole numbers, okay? And rounding just means that you make the number, or you show what number the actual number is that you're looking at. What is he or she closest to as far as an easier whole number to work with? So for instance, I'm going to use my whiteboard for a second, and you could certainly take out yours as well. If I wrote the number, let's do 78, okay? And I have $78. Well, if I was going shopping and something cost $78 that I wanted to buy or purchase, I wouldn't just bring $78. I'd probably round up because of this guy. Now, since that guy is 5 or more, I would go one more. And when I say one more, I usually think of a multiple of 10. So 78 buckaroos. Yes, it's $78, but what multiple of 10 is 78 closer to that I could round him to? Hopefully you're saying in your head, he's closer to $80. So when we round, we think, where does this guy fall between? Well, he falls between 70 and 80, but this 8 tells me to go up to 80. Unlike if I have, let's do $72. So now if I have 72, I'm going to say he's between 70 and 80. This 2 is going to tell me to go down and say he's closer to $70. So I would round him to 70. Okay? Of course, if I was bringing money to the store, I'd bring a little more anyways, though. So when we round, we actually look at a specific digit and we think, So hopefully you have this little riddle in your notebook already because it's on this page. We look at a certain digit and we think 5 or more, go 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay? So let's look at decimal place values like you just did in the lesson that you watched with Mrs. Preston teaching you, and you were hopefully practicing with me. If we round, let's highlight our vocabulary. Oh, I missed a lesson number. Let's put 1.6 at the top. And this will be your final lesson for chapter 1. We'll be doing some review tomorrow and then our test at the end of the week. When we round, it means that we replace one number with another. So we simply are going to take one number that we're looking at, and replace it with another. So we're going to change it. So let's think this word replace means change. But when we round, we tell about how many. Okay, and that's really, really important that we pay attention to the word about. Because when we round, we don't necessarily need to tell the exact number. We just need to tell about how many or sometimes how much. But we have to pay attention to place value because it's going to tell us which specific digit to look at. Now, when we replace it with another number, here I go with my arrows again, we don't just replace it with another number that's harder to work with. We usually think of another number that's easier, is an easier number for me to work with. So we think our multiples of 10, or zeros or 5s. Okay? So if we have 6 and 1300ths, because that's how we would say it, so we're going to practice with this guy, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth. Well, we have to look at 6 and 1300ths to decide where the tenths place is. Okay? Well, we always are going to pay attention to the buddy on the right of the place value they want us to round to. So since they want us, let's write it bigger over here. 6 and 1300ths, just easier to see. Since they want us to round to the nearest tenth, we're going to underline the tenths place, and that would be a 1. But we're going to use the buddy to his right. That's the guy that's going to tell us how to round this guy. And we're going to think, well, is it 5 or more, or is it 4 or less? Well, what's 3? 3 is 4 or less, so we're going to let this guy rest. So if we think 6 and 1300ths is between 6 and 1/10 or 6 and 2/10, which is he closer to? Well, if we put him on a number line, he's going to fall closer to 6 and 1/10. We're going to let this guy rest because the 3 is 4 or less, so he stays. So if we're asked to round between or to the nearest tenth, we're going to say, okay, here's my tenths place. The 3 is 4 or less, so I let him rest. So that would mean it would round to the nearest tenth as 6 and 1/10, and we would drop the other place values. Okay? And we could write 6 and 1/10 and pad with a 0. It would mean the same thing, but we are just going to drop the other place values that we don't need. So if we look at the number line, we're asked to use the number line, this guy, and I say number lines are good to look at, to write a number that would round to 6 and 2/10. Okay, well, 6 and 1300ths, he's closer to this guy. 6 and 1500ths is exactly halfway between 6 and 1/10 and 6 and 2/10. This would be 6 and 1400ths, 6 and 1500ths. What could be here? This would be 6 and 1600ths, 6 and 1700ths. What would this guy be? He would be 6 and 1800ths. And aren't we getting closer and closer to 6 2/10? So anything past 6 1500ths would round to 6 2/10. And here's why. So let's write a couple. 6 1600ths, 6 1700ths, 6 1800ths. They would all round to 6 2/10, because if we're rounding to the tenths, there's a 1 there, but their buddies are all more than 4. So if it's 5 or more, go 1 more. That means I would make it 2/10 instead of 1. All right, let's look at number 2. It says round the decimal 17 4600ths. So we're going to round him, they wrote it big for us, to the nearest tenth, okay? We'll draw a line under the rounding place. They want us to round to the nearest tenth. Circle the digit to the right. This is what I just told you to do. So 4 is going to be helped by 6. So if I have to round it to the nearest tenths place, that means I want to stop in the tenths place. Well, there's a 4 there. But this 6 is going to tell me to either let it rest or go 1 more. So if the circle digit is 5 or greater, that means his buddy to the right is 5 or greater. Increase the underlined digit by 1. That's actually something good to highlight. So if the digit, if your circle digit, let's write that, is increased, is 5 or greater, that means we're going to increase. That means we're going to go 1 more. If the circle digit is less than 5, it stays the same. The underlined digit will stay the same. That means let it rest. And this all goes with your riddle on your left side. 5 or more, go 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. So let's look at 17 4600ths. What's the circle digit? Well, 6, so he's going to be my buddy to help. Is the circle digit 5 or greater, or is it less than 5? He's 5 or greater. We'll do an arrow up for greater. So what do I do with the underlined digit? If 6 is greater than 5, am I going to keep 4, or am I going to go 1 more? I'm going to increase by 1. I'm going to go 1 more. So whatever place value it's telling you to round, which in this case was the tenths, I've got to use his buddy to the right. Buddy to the right, if he's 5 or more, go 1 more. That means he would go 1 more. If he's 4 or less, which he's not, I would let him rest. I would keep him a 4. But since this 6 is higher than 5, I've got to increase my tenths place by 1 more. So 17 4600ths rounded to the nearest tenths place is going to be 17, we're going to go 1 more, and 5/10. You are going to drop any digits to the right of the rounding spot. So we don't have to write the 6. We're asked to round into the nearest tenth. Okay, let's look at number 5. We're going to round 17 4600ths to the nearest whole number. Ooh, whole number. So that would be left of decimal point. Here's your whole number. 17 is your whole number. Okay. Now we're going to look at the tenths place especially. And actually, we can round him to the whole number, 17. Let's use 4 to help us. Since 17 is the whole number, let's use 4 to help us. So is 4 or less, or 5 or more? He's 4 or less, so we let it rest. So we could say he's actually closer to 17 wholes. Some people might round 17 to 20 bucks, but since we have a decimal place value to round, we're gonna leave him at 17. So you always use, since it said whole number, we have to use the whole number side, which in this case would be 17. If it just said ones place, then we would use the 7. Okay, how about this last guy? What is 8 and 545 thousandths kilograms rounded to the nearest hundredth? And rounded is our key word. Okay, so let's rewrite it over here so it's bigger. 8 and 545 thousandths. Well, they want us to round to the nearest hundredth, so we're going to underline him. We're going to circle the guy to his right, which is a 5, and we're going to remember he's my buddy. So if we're rounding to the nearest hundredths, we've got to change this guy or keep him the same. It depends on what his buddy says. So since 5 is 5 or more, I'm going to go one more. So this would be 8 and 55 hundredths. We would stop here. Rounded. So this would be my final answer. So you have to pay attention to what it's asking you to round to, which place value. You use the buddy to the right, so we circle the guy to the right. If he's 5 or more, you go one more. If he's 4 or less, you let him rest. You just keep him. Okay, let's go ahead and glue him into our right side. Should come right after 1.5. Okay. All right, now on your left side, my hope is, switch notebooks, that you either printed and glued this to your left side, so you have your notes for 1.6 on your right and your other chart on the left, or you copied this by hand. Either way, you've got to get it in your notebook because this will help you when you're estimating and rounding, whether it's whole numbers or decimals. Okay? And you are welcome, of course. Sorry, I'm making you dizzy again. Lift you up a little so we can see the whole thing. You are welcome to highlight as we go through this. This one's already done because it's my last year's. So estimating and rounding mean that we have to do 3 things to get to what it's asking me to do. Step 1 is we're going to find the place value in which we wanted or needed to estimate or round. So it's always going to tell you which place value to round in. It might say the tenths. It might say the hundredths. It might say the ones. In this case, it's the ones. Then you will use his buddy to the right. So you always look at the place value it's asking you to round. Look to the right, which is his buddy. So in this case, I made up money, $4.97. 4 is what I've got to round because it told me in the ones place. I look to his buddy on the right. He's a 9. And I'm going to think. If it's 5 or more, that means his buddy is 5 or more. Go one more. That means the estimated digit has to go one more. If his buddy was 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest. I'm going to keep him what he is. So in this case, it asked me to round to the nearest whole number. So I had to use this 9, his buddy to the right, to help me round. So 9 is 5 or more, so that tells me to go one more with him. And that would bring him to 5 buckaroos. So make sure you have this on the left side of your math notes page for 1.6. Okay. Now, you need to go, hold on, Miss Preston's gonna try something. Okay, before you do your homework page, which will be page 11 and page 12. Okay, it's in your lesson. Before you do your homework page, remember you must be visiting your SAVVAS math tile and finding your assignments. So let me remind you, and you're gonna go for a walk with me, on what your SAVVAS tile is. And you will be visiting this daily now. And you will always have a practice buddy in there and a quick check. So once you've done your notes lesson and your main lesson with me, which is first, you are going to click on your it's a little blurry. It says SAVVAS tile. Yours looks a little different, but when you get there, you will see something underneath math that says Envision. You'll click on it. Take a second. And when it pops up, you'll have a couple different options, and one will be red and it will say classes. Sorry, this is taking a while. Well, not going to cooperate with us. Let's see. Refresh it. Once this pops up, you'll see there we go. You're always going to click on your red, and when you click on your red, you'll see assignments. You've already done your Chapter 16 test. Today, which Mrs. Preston is filming the day before, you should have gone to 1.5. When you click on today, you'll see 1.6, but you always have a practice buddy and a quick check to do now. So don't forget to go into your SAVVAS tile, and you're going to be doing practice in there daily now. All right, good luck.